Welcome to Cafe Snacks, the most wanted news of current happenings regarding UPSC, SSC, and other state administrative examination perspective. It is all learn, and this is Shyam here. Let us move on to the first discussion. Recently, a news article regarding blockchain technology has appeared in the Hindu newspaper. And this particular news is of importance with prelims perspective and mains perspective. And in prelims, it is part of polity and governance syllabus and also science and technology. And in mains, it is part of GS paper 2. Now, the topic is blockchain technology and the use of such technology in elections. Now, blockchain is a system of recording information in a way that makes it difficult or impossible to change, hack, or cheat the system. That means it is like bookkeeping or like a ledger. Now, the blockchain is essentially a digital ledger of transactions that is duplicated and distributed across the entire network of computer systems on the blockchain. Now, each block in chain contains a number of transactions. It contains a lot of information. And when every time a new transaction occurs on the blockchain, a record of that transaction is added to every participant's ledger. That means it is decentralized database and it is managed by multiple participants. That is why it is known as distributed ledger technology, that is DLT. So blockchain is a type of DLT in which transactions are recorded with an immutable, that is irreversible cryptographic signature called a hash. That means every particular ledger or every basic unit of this distributed ledger technology will be having a cryptographic signature called hash. Now, what are the properties of this DLT technology? It is programmable. That means a blockchain is programmable. Certain programs are used to encode and also to decode this particular type of ledger. Then it is secure. All records are individually encrypted. That means if generally something happened to the blockchain too, it won't affect each individual units because all records are individually encrypted. Then it is anonymous. The identity of participants is either anonymous or pseudonymous. It is unanimous. All network participants agree to the validity of each of the records. That means it is democratic too. It is distributed, and that is why it is known as distributed ledger technology, because all network participants have a copy of the ledger for complete transparency. That is why it is distributed. It is immutable. Any validated records are irreversible and cannot be changed. And also time stamped. A transaction timestamp is recorded on a block. So even the timing of the transaction is being recorded in the blockchain technology. Now, what is the difference between blockchain and Bitcoin? So, blockchain is the technology that underpins the cryptocurrency Bitcoin. So, Bitcoin works using this technology of blockchain. But Bitcoin is not the only version of a blockchain distributed ledger system in the market. There are several other cryptocurrencies with their own blockchain and distributed ledger architects. So these kinds of currencies are known as cryptocurrencies, and Bitcoin is just an example of such cryptocurrency that uses the blockchain technology. What about the Bitcoin story? Let us look into the history of Bitcoin. In 2008, around the time of the financial crisis, there was a groundbreaking post that appeared, and that was titled Bitcoin, a peer-to-peer electronic cash system. Now, it was written by an anonymous person. It was written by an anonymous person, but it was under a pseudonym called Satoshi Nakamoto. So, that was a fake name, and Satoshi was using this particular article to enlighten us regarding the banking sectors and governments too much power that they use for their own self-interest. And Satoshi envisaged a new type of money called Bitcoin, and that is the origin story. Initially, Satoshi's idea was not taken seriously, but later it spread like wildfire and Bitcoin became a huge economic hit. Since it was formulated and launched in 2019, Bitcoin has grown to a network of around 10,000 nodes or participants which use the proof of work system to validate transactions and mine Bitcoin. So, there are two words, that is proof of work system and mine. So, what are they? Let us look into that. What is proof of work? Now, this proof of work principle, it requires that the people who own the computers in the network to solve a complex mathematical problem to be able to add a block to the chain. That means basically blockchain consists of many ledgers, individual ledgers. So they are like blocks. So each block will be having transaction information and also a crypto code, that is the hash. Now, in order to add an extra block, you need to do complex mathematical operations. Only then this particular block will be added to the continuous chain of ledgers. So that is to be remembered. Now you need to understand, how does a transaction get into the blockchain? How does it work? How does the entire system work? First and foremost, a transaction is requested and it is authenticated. Then a block that is representing that transaction is created. This block will be having every information regarding the transaction. Then the block is sent to every node. Every node means to every participant. Then later the nodes will validate the transaction, and by doing complex mathematical problem they will validate it, and once they are validated, then the nodes will receive a reward for the proof of work, typically in cryptocurrency. Then the block is added to the existing blockchain. Now the updated distributed system will be refreshed and the transaction is complete. And above, why does this particular news appeared? Because there was an initial recommendation by the election commission to conduct the voting procedures in India, or convert the voting procedures to remote elections through blockchain technology. So, the election commission in August 2020 held an online conference in collaboration with the Tamil Nadu e-governance agency TNEGA and IIT Madras, through which they explored the possibility of using blockchain technology for the purpose of enabling remote elections. Now, what are the benefits of remote voting through ledger? First and foremost, it solves the problem of ballot portability. That means it is very easy. Anybody can access from anywhere. For example, it will reduce the burden of immigrant workers, and it will be easily accessible to the lowest strata economic section. And also it will be useful for people in remote places, for example like army men, and it will help to increase the voter participation, and it is secure. Since there is a hash, every transaction is secured. But what are the problems associated? Even though the blockchain technology is considered as tamper proof, people say that still there can be hacking problems. It can be hacked. Then the requirement of physical presence and biometric authentication is another problem. In order to operate this one, a person need to handle his biometric authentication. In that case, the biometric authentication can be tampered, and that will affect the electronic voting method. And also it is not fully secure. That is another argument against it. Then they say that it is prone to targeted denial of services. What is targeted denial of services? Imagine that somebody tampers with this particular system, they tweak the system, and they delay the system. Then the service of voting will be delayed. That is prone to targeted denial of services. Then it is also prone to foreign intervention. If there is all these kinds of problem, surely there will be privacy leakage. The secrecy will be revealed. So that is all about this particular article. Let us move on to the next. There is a Hindu news article that speaks about redefining a farmer. Now, as far as the syllabus is concerned, in the prelims part, it comes in economy section, and as a part of mains, it is in GS3, that is economy. Now, the topic is related to how farmers need to be identified. Now, here we are speaking about the definitions of farmer. Usually, the definitions come from a government perspective. Now, the population census defines cultivators as a person engaged in cultivation of land, either owned or held in kind or share. And also, the 59th round of the Situation Assessment Survey SAS of farmers conducted by NSSO, that is National Sample Survey Office, defines on possession of land either owned or leased or otherwise possessed for defining farmers. So in both cases, the farmer or farmers of India is defined on the basis of the land that they own. Now, what should be done in order to define a farmer properly, so that to ensure that they get each and every claim that they make, and also every scheme of the government that should reach the farmer reach in ample or correct time? That is to do, first thing to do is delinking of land as the defining criterion for a farmer, and this was done in the 70th round of essays carried out by the NSSO, wherein agriculture households were defined as those receiving some value of produce from agricultural activities during the previous 1 year. So, they have done it through 70th round of essays by properly delinking of land as a defining criterion for a farmer. Now, let us look into the problems in the definition. Now, the definition based on land defining the farmers, it has a great impact regarding the implementation of government schemes. For example, when it comes to the PM Kisan scheme, it provides income support only to the land owning families. Then, such a narrow definition fails to include the agricultural laborers, tenants, sharecroppers, women, etc. as the beneficiaries under the scheme. Now, this is the problem that the article deals with, and this is what you need to understand from the perspective of this news article. Let us move on to the next news article. Now, there is a news in Hindu regarding BT cotton. The title is Twisted Trajectory of BT cotton. Now, syllabus as per the mains, it is in GS paper 2, that is polity and governance. The topic is hybrid cotton in India. You need to know what is hybrid cotton. First and foremost, we need to understand BT cotton, what is BT cotton, and the problems it has faced in India. BT cotton is an insect resistant transgenic crop designed to combat the bollworm. BT cotton was created by genetically altering the cotton genome to express a microbial protein from the bacterium. That bacterium is known as Bacillus thuringiensis. So, in short, the transgene that is inserted into the plant genome produces toxin or toxin crystals or toxic proteins that the plant would not normally produce, which when ingested by a certain population of organisms, it will dissolve their gut lining and that will lead to the organism's death. So basically, it is genetically modified BT cotton. So it is genetically modified by inserting the genome of a bacterium called Bacillus thuringiensis in order to generate toxic materials that will kill the insects which are affecting the cotton plant. Now, what were its problem? Especially regarding to Indian aspect. The introduction of hybrid BT cotton led to an initial reduction in the insecticide use, but it increased after 2012. And also, the resistance to insecticides and to BT toxins was developing in pink bollworm and American bollworm. So both pink bollworm and American bollworm were the major enemies of the cotton plant, and they started developing resistance to both insecticides and also to BT toxins. So BT toxin was used in order to kill insects that cause damage to the plant, so that insecticides can be used very rarely. But here, as the years passed, both pink bollworm and American bollworm both attained resistance to insecticides and also to Bt toxin. So this resulted in double jeopardy of insecticide and biotechnology to Indian farmers. And also, you need to understand that even though the Bolga 2 or BG2, that is Monsanto's second generation insecticidal technology for cotton. So, Monsanto is a company, they have a particular technology called Bolga 2 or BG2, that is insecticidal technology for cotton. It was supposed to protect the crops against pink bollworm. But the pest has grown resistant to the toxins that is produced by this trait only in India. So the problem in India is that it became pest resistant. And the following reasons can be attributed for this. It is often argued by scientists that Bt cotton seeds are not suitable under monsoon conditions, that is Indian climate. Unlike other cotton growing countries where open pollinated cotton varieties are grown, Indian cotton farmers only opt for hybrid varieties. So we are basically focusing on hybrid varieties because of its much higher yield. And that is the problem here. You know what is HT-BT cotton? HT in the word stands for herbicide tolerant. So herbicide tolerant BT cotton is genetically modified crop of unapproved genes which is not permissible in India. Technically, herbicide is like a poison which is used to destroy unwanted vegetation. Now, since it is not permissible in India, the farmers in the northern states like Maharashtra, Punjab, etc. are in agitation because they want high yielding varieties to be planted, but the government is not giving permission, and that is also one reason why HT-BT cotton is in news. And the technique in the HT-BT cotton makes the crop resistant to the herbicide following modification in genes of the seeds. Normally, when an herbicide is sprayed, then it destroys unwanted vegetation along with causing harm to the cotton crops. So that is the problem. It not just destroys the unwanted vegetation, but it may also cause harm to the cotton crop. That is the reason why herbicide spraying is not feasible. But whereas when we consider herbicide tolerant BT cotton, this is the genetically modified cotton that is naturally tolerant to herbicide. So the word naturally I have used in a special context, but basically it is artificial gene transplantation. Let us move on to the next discussion. Now, let us look into PM Street Vendors Atmanirbhar Nidhi scheme. Now, there's a news article regarding this in the page 11 of Hindu, and it is titled Government Will Ease Problems of Poor. Now, syllabus as part of the prelims, it comes under economy section, and as part of mains, it comes in the economy section. That is the mains, it is a part of GS paper 3. The topic is regarding PM Street Vendors Atmanirbhar Nidhi. Now, what is a scheme? Now, before understanding the scheme, it is simply said in a phrase that it is a special microcredit facility for street vendors. So, it simply defines what it is in this particular phrase. Now, what is a scheme? The scheme is a central sector scheme. That means it will be financed entirely by the central government. And it is to facilitate the street vendors to access affordable working capital loan for resuming their livelihoods activities after easing of lockdown. So it is on the basis of this lockdown that this particular scheme is being initiated in order to help the street vendors. Now, what is the rationale of the scheme? The COVID-19 pandemic and the consequent lockdowns might have adversely impacted the livelihood of street vendors. So, whatever small capital base that they might have consumed that during the lockdown. So, that is the reason why it is being implemented. Now, what are the objectives of the scheme? The objective is to facilitate the working capital loan up to rupees 10,000 at subsidized rate of interest. That is the first objective. The second one is to incentivize regular repayment of loan. Third, to reward digital transactions. So these are the three objectives of the scheme. Now, what are the salient features of the scheme? The first one, they will be provided with an initial working capital of up to rupees 10,000. Then there will be interest subsidy on timely early payment at 7%. So there will be a 7% interest subsidy on the loan which they have taken. Third, there will be a monthly cashback incentive on digital transactions. So if they are doing more digital transactions, it will be useful for them at the end of the month. And fourth one, higher loan eligibility on timely repayment of the first loan. If they are repaying their first loan immediately, they will be having a higher loan eligibility next time. Now, who is the target beneficiary of the scheme? It is the street vendors or hawkers. They are vending in urban areas. So, the specificity here is regarding urban areas. And the date is before March 24, 2020. Now, who is a street vendor or hawker? Any person engaged in vending of articles, goods, wares, food items, or merchandise of daily use, or offering services to the public in a street, footpath, pavement, etc., from a temporarily built up structure or by moving from place to place. So, he is a street vendor. So, street vendor is defined here. It will be important in prelims perspective. Now look into the lending institutions. They are scheduled commercial banks, regional rural banks, small finance banks, cooperative banks, NBFC, that is non-banking financial companies, microfinance institutions, and SHG banks. So most probably almost every sector of banking comes under this scheme. And the scheme shall be implemented up to March 2022. So that's all about PM Street Vendors Atmanirbhar Nidhi. Let us move on to the next article. Now this particular article was part of the Hindu articles in the editorial section, and the title is Indo-Pacific Trilateral Dialogue. As part of the syllabus, when the prelims is considered, it is part of current events of international importance, and in the mains perspective, it comes in GS paper 2, international relations and dialogues. Dialogues means it will be trilateral and multilateral dialogues, which is specified in the syllabus section. And the topic of discussion is first senior officials, Indian, France, Australia trilateral dialogue. So it was first of a kind of dialogue between India, Australia and France on Wednesday. They talked for the first time under a trilateral framework with focus on enhancing their cooperation in the Indo-Pacific, a region where Chinese military assertiveness is increasing. And the focus of the dialogue was on enhancing cooperation in the Indo-Pacific region. So Indo-Pacific is the main geographical feature which is highlighted in the India-France-Australia trilateral dialogue. And it was an outcome-oriented meeting which was held with the objective of building on the strong bilateral ties that the three countries share with each other and synergize their respective strengths to ensure a peaceful, secure and prosperous and rules-based Indo-Pacific region. Again, they are focusing on the Indo-Pacific region and they are using their strengths to build up their multilateral ties in order to ensure a peaceful Indo-Pacific region. Now, the 10-nation ASEAN is considered one of the most influential groupings in the Indo-Pacific region. India and several other countries including US, China, Japan, Australia are its dialogue partners. That is to be remembered. And also, the three sides agreed to hold the dialogue on an annual basis. The three sides also discussed about the economic and geostrategic challenges and cooperation in Indo-Pacific. Now the three countries also had an exchange on the priorities, the challenges and trends in regional and global multilateral institutions. And also the Ministry of External Affairs said that the cooperation on marine global commons and potential areas for practical partnership at the trilateral and regional level were also discussed. And the regional organization including ASEAN, IORA, that is Indian Ocean Rim Association and Indian Ocean Commission were also brought to the forefront. So that's all about this particular news article. So the news discussion is over. Thank you.